Hello everyone, and welcome to Ecospaces Wildlife Garden Design Breakdown and Rationale. On this video, we will be presenting our design scheme for the recycled garden, which was a wildlife garden constructed solely from recycled medium. The garden was such a success, we used it as our base for the online Eco Garden, which is an online learning resource on wildlife species and habitats. The existing garden is a typical long narrow yard associated with urban terraced houses. The garden was very overgrown and we wanted to meander a pathway through different habitats to reach the opposite end where the sun was at its most frequent. Using a crushed stone aggregate, we implemented a pathway from the sitting area near the house to the very end of the garden. The gravel will warm up on sunny mornings, providing sunbathing opportunities for certain species such as butterflies and damselflies. The zebra spider, shown here, likes to ambush its prey in these environments. In the central part of the design, a drainage swale or drainage pond was created to capture excess rainwater and funnel it into a wetland habitat. Small caves and crevices were created in the retaining wall and using small boulders left over from other landscaping projects. These wetland sanctuaries were created to speed up the colonisation by water-loving species. This slide shows the main planting areas, which will be covered with a layer of bark mulch. Bark mulch is a habitat in its own right, encouraging creatures which feed on the natural decaying process. Many woodland species can be found in these environments. Rocky dry habitats vary greatly in Britain and are sometimes overlooked as an important wildlife habitat. From the windswept highlands of Scotland, rocky outcrops of the Cornish moors, sandy heathlands of Sussex and chalk hills of the Chilterns to the dry stone walls of the Cotswolds, Britain is covered with these dry oases of life. The main characteristic of these habitats is their ability to provide shelter and places to hide. Rock, loose gravel and sand warms up quickly during the day's sunlight and slowly release their warmth during the night. This process creates a stable environment for reptiles, especially, which are cold-blooded and require external heat sources to stay active. Areas of this design where the habitat is present is the dry rocky garden and the surface of the York stepping stones. Wildlife meadows are a rich habitat for literally thousands of species of plants, insects, birds, mammals, reptiles and amphibians. The long dense foliage of a meadow provides shelter, whilst the array of flowering plants and grasses provide a limitless supply of food. Before the times of modern high-energy animal feed, large areas of Britain's grasslands were left to grow wild, being cut down in the autumn to provide hay for feeding farm animals during the winter months. When more intensive farming methods were introduced, this age-old practice was abandoned, resulting in Britain losing over 90% of its wildflower meadows. This is why it's at least worth trying to establish the meadow in your garden. This slide shows you some of the species you could attract. Deadwood is one of the most important elements within a woodland habitat. It provides nesting opportunities for birds, insects, reptiles, amphibians and mammals. Soft, moist rotten wood hosts a feast for a variety of microorganisms, providing a food base for larger creatures. Decay in any woodland environment is essential to the recycling process of natural resources within the ecosystem. Some invertebrates rely solely on deadwood to complete the larval stage of their development, with some relying solely on one species of tree. Standing deadwood has an importance in its own right. Some creatures depend on standing trees for their survival within the woodland environment. Why not implement this within your own garden as well? Vertical tree stumps can provide natural sculpture to a garden too. Flower borders, although not a habitat necessarily found in the wild, are a fantastic source of food and shelter for wildlife. Britain is famous for its flower borders, with their timed excellence providing interest throughout the year. Borders also ensure a good supply of pollen and nectar for insects. The constant working of the ground aerates the soil, feeding microorganisms, and they also attract the odd robin, of course. In much of Britain today, wildlife has come to rely on the security and feeding opportunities that the flower border brings. Woodland is one of Britain's most iconic habitats. About 10,000 years ago, after the last ice age, Britain was covered in woodland. As the human population grew, more woodland was felled for farming and shipbuilding. Many of the animal and plant species alive today in Britain are remnants of the old primeval forest seeking refuge in the last standing woodlands, hedgerows, parks and gardens. These important habitats can be recreated with a combination of native woodland trees, shrubs, plants and decaying material. It has been realised that providing a habitat for wildlife near to vegetable plots has helped to reduce crop pests by creating a natural balance of predator and prey species. Vegetable plots are ideal accompaniments to nature gardens. Habitat boosters in the form of insect hotels and log piles provide all-important shelter for any scheme. Reptiles like to hibernate in these warm, humid places, as do insects and small mammals. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation today. Here's one last look at the presentation sheet. If you would like any more information, please contact us via our website www.eco-spaces.co.uk or at our more condensed Weebly wildlife site by searching for Wildlife Gardens for Schools. Thank you very much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, please like and share or subscribe.